The battlefield on Draka. 7 stretched for miles, a wasteland of scorched earth and jagged rock formations beneath a sky thick with smoke and ash. The United Earth Defense Force, UDF, had arrived in full force, their drop ships hovering above the desolate terrain, while troops clad in the newly developed Titan Mk4 battle armor stood in formation, waiting. Across the field, the Xel'Nari Dominion, an empire of war-hardened reptilian warriors, loomed in their towering exosuits, their gleaming plasma weapons humming with power. The air crackled with tension as both sides faced each other, the silence before the inevitable storm of battle. A deep, guttural laugh broke the quiet. Overlord Skor, the Xel'Nari war chief, stepped forward, his crimson-scaled body covered in armor adorned with battle scars and trophies from countless conquests. His glowing cybernetic eye scanned the human soldiers, and his lips curled into something resembling amusement. "This," he sneered, pointing a clawed hand at the Titan-clad soldiers. "This is what humans bring to war." He turned to his warriors, spreading his arms wide. "Look at them, hiding in their tin shells, like fragile little creatures who fear the bite of real combat." The Xel'Nari soldiers erupted in laughter, a chorus of hissing and guttural chuckles echoing across the battlefield. From the human side, Captain Darius Holt watched without a flicker of emotion. His visor concealed his expression, but his stance remained solid, unwavering. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Voss, stood beside him, her fists clenched. "They're underestimating us," she muttered through gritted teeth. "Let them," Holt replied, his voice calm, almost amused. He had been in countless battles, and he had seen this before. Aliens mocking humanity, believing them to be weak, only to learn the truth the hard way. Skor's laughter faded, and he turned back to the human soldiers with a smirk. "You're a pathetic species," he spat. "Your reliance on metal shells and machinery makes you weak. A warrior's strength should come from his flesh, from his blood, not from a coward's armor." He raised his plasma rifle, the weapon thrumming with power as he took aim at one of the human soldiers standing at the front of the formation. "Allow me to demonstrate what true power looks like." Before Holt could react, Skor fired. A concentrated bolt of searing blue plasma shot across the battlefield, moving too fast for the naked eye to follow. The Xel'Nari soldiers watched with anticipation, expecting instant incineration. The air around the plasma bolt rippled with raw energy as it collided directly with the human soldier's Titan Mk4 armor. And then nothing. The plasma blast did not burn through the soldier. It did not knock him down. It did not even leave a scorch mark. Instead, the energy spread across the surface of the armor like liquid light, dispersing harmlessly before vanishing entirely. The human soldier didn't even flinch. Silence. The laughter stopped. Skor's eyes narrowed in disbelief. His clawed fingers tightened around his rifle, as if the weapon had betrayed him. He took a step forward, glaring at the undamaged soldier. "What trickery is this?" he snarled. Holt allowed himself a small smirk beneath his helmet. He could feel the shift in the air. Moments ago, the Xel'Nari had been laughing, certain of their superiority. Now they weren't so sure. "You were saying something about us being weak?" Holt called out. Mara Voss chuckled. I think he expected a different result. The human soldiers stood firm, their Titan Mk4 armor glinting in the dim light of the battlefield. The suits weren't just metal shells. They were cutting-edge technology, built with advanced energy dispersion fields, kinetic absorption plating, and reactive shielding. Weapons that would have obliterated previous generations of soldiers were now useless. Skor's lip curled in frustration. He turned to his warriors, barking a command. "Fire! All of you! Destroy them!" The Xel'Nari warriors obeyed instantly, raising their plasma rifles, Gauss cannons, and fusion launchers. A storm of energy blasts rained down upon the human ranks. Plasma streaked through the air, explosions shook the battlefield, and beams of condensed energy slammed into the Titan-armored troops. And yet, nothing changed. The human soldiers remained standing. The plasma bolts dissipated upon contact. The explosive rounds burst harmlessly against the armor's kinetic absorption field. Even the high-energy beams, which could melt through warships, failed to penetrate. The Xel'Nari fired everything they had, their weapons blazing with relentless fury. And still, the humans stood unscathed. Skor's confident sneer vanished. His soldiers, once so sure of their victory, now looked at their weapons with dawning horror. The unstoppable warriors of the Dominion had just encountered something they couldn't kill. Mara Voss let out a low whistle. "Well, would you look at that? Seems like their weapons are a little outdated." Holt stepped forward, casually dusting off his armored shoulder. His voice was calm, but his words carried an undeniable finality. "You're not the first ones to underestimate us," he said, his tone even. "And you won't be the last." Across the battlefield, Score took a slow step backward. His mind raced. How? How was this possible? Humans were supposed to be fragile, weak. Their technology was supposed to be inferior. And yet, his army's most powerful weapons had just been rendered useless. Holt raised his fist. "Now our turn." With that, the human forces surged forward. The battle was no longer a test of survival. It was a reckoning. The battlefield erupted into chaos as the UDF soldiers surged forward, their Titan Mk4 battle armor turning them into living weapons. Overlord Score watched in stunned silence for a brief moment before roaring a command, his deep voice crackling over the Dominion's comm channels. "Hold the line. Regroup and counterattack. Cut them down." The Xel'Nari warriors scrambled to reposition, their massive exosuits shifting into defensive formations as they fired relentlessly at the advancing humans. But it was futile. Plasma bolts, fusion grenades, and high-energy blasts all dispersed harmlessly against the Titan suits, their cutting-edge energy dispersal systems rendering the attacks meaningless. The humans moved like unstoppable titans, each one shrugging off weapons that would have vaporized lesser beings.
Captain Darius Holt led the charge, his boots slamming into the scorched ground as he activated his armor's combat boosters, closing the distance between him and the nearest warrior in an instant. The reptilian soldier, easily 8 feet tall, swung his plasma axe with a roar, but Holt sidestepped with inhuman speed, his reflexes amplified by his armor's neural interface. He grabbed by the arm and twisted, the sound of bones shattering echoing across the battlefield. The alien let out a strangled hiss before Holt delivered a brutal punch to the chest, sending the warrior flying several meters before he crashed into a rock formation. The ground beneath them trembled as other human soldiers engaged the enemy with precision and overwhelming force. Lieutenant Mara was moved like a blur, weaving between enemy fire as she drove her armored fist through an cockpit, ripping out the pilot inside. Another warrior lunged at her from behind, but she twisted, her suit's enhanced servos allowing her to spin faster than any human should. She kicked out, her boot striking the warrior's head with force, sending the enemy spinning lifelessly to the ground. She smirked inside her helmet. "Well, this is just embarrassing for them." The confidence crumbled as they realized they were outmatched in every possible way. Their weapons had no effect. Their armor was useless. Their war machines, once fed across the galaxy, were being torn apart with bare hands. A squad of heavily armored beta walkers attempted to push back, their massive cannons glowing as they unleashed a barrage of searing plasma rounds. The shots slammed into the ranks, only to fizzle out on impact. The Titan armor's reactive shielding absorbed the energy, redistributing it harmlessly across its surface. The soldiers inside didn't even break stride. Holt leaped onto the nearest beta walker, gripping the meta plating as the pilot inside panicked, trying to shake him off. Holt's suit automatically analyzed weak points in the armor, highlighting them in his HUD. With a single strike, he drove his fist through the machine's cockpit, tearing out the pilot and sending the massive walker crashing to the ground. The other walkers hesitated. Their pilots, once so certain of their invincibility, now realized the truth. The humans were not the prey. They were the hunters. Overlord, rage bawled over as he watched his forces fall apart. His warriors, his elite fighters, were being slaughtered like animals. His claws clenched into fists as he activated his personal combat suit, a massive, reinforced that enhanced his speed, strength, and durability. The armor locked into place, its crimson plating glowing with pulsating energy as bladed plasma gauntlets extended from his wrists. "Enough," he bellowed, leaping into battle. He landed with a thunderous crash, sending out a shockwave that knocked several human soldiers back. His glowing eyes locked onto Holt. "You dare challenge the Dominion with mere armor?" Holt turned slowly, rolling his shoulders as he sized up the Overlord. His HUD analyzed the detecting energy shielding and enhanced power output. He smirked. "You talk too much." Roared and charged, moving faster than something his size should have been able to. His plasma gauntlets swung in rapid arcs, each strike capable of cutting through battleship hulls. Holt dodged effortlessly, his Titan suit predicting the attacks before they landed. Sparks flew as blows glanced off the armor, unable to penetrate its defenses. The Overlord snarled in frustration. "You are nothing but a fragile creature hiding in stolen power." He feinted left, then lunged, grabbing Holt by the torso. With a roar, he lifted him off the ground and hurled him into a wrecked transport. The impact sent Meta and debris flying. Grinned, believing he had finally cracked the human's defenses. Then Holt stood up, completely unscathed. Grin faltered. Holt cracked his neck. Was that it? The Overlord's confidence evaporated. He barely had time to react before Holt exploded forward, faster than before. A single enhanced punch sent, skidding back several meters, his armor sparking violently. Holt pressed the attack, his blows relentless, his strength amplified by his suit's modules. Tried to block, but each strike shattered his defenses, denting his armor, breaking through his shielding. The Overlord of the Dominion, one of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, was being systematically dismantled. The final blow came when Holt gripped, arm and twisted, tearing the gauntlet clean off. Sparks flew, staggered back, panting, his pride and body broken. He looked up at Holt, genuine fear in his alien eyes. What are you?" Holt clenched his fist, the servos in his armor whirring as he stepped forward. "We're human." He punched one last time, the impact sending the Overlord sprawling. As the alien legion collapsed, his soldiers finally broke, turning to flee. Mara Vas stood over the battlefield, watching as the forces retreated in absolute terror. She smirked. "Guess they're not laughing anymore." Holt exhaled, looking down at his armor, still pristine, still untouched. He turned to his troops, nodding. "No, but I think we will be."
Overlord Score staggered back, his breath ragged, his once imposing form now a shadow of its former strength. His damaged exoframe sparked, deep gouges and dents covering its once pristine crimson plating. His warriors had fled, their morale shattered by the humans' invincible armor. This was not how it was supposed to go. Humanity was supposed to be weak, their technology inferior, their soldiers fragile. Instead, the battlefield was littered with Xel'Nari corpses, their most advanced weapons rendered useless, their towering war machines torn apart like scrap metal. The humans had not just endured the assault, they had completely dominated the fight. And now, Captain Darius Holt stood before him, his Titan Mk4 armor untouched, his stance as steady as ever. "Is this it?" Holt asked, his voice calm but firm. The mighty Xel'Nari Dominion, brought to its knees in minutes? Score's clawed hand trembled as he reached for his belt, where his last weapon remained. A device of pure destruction, one that had never failed him before. With a snarling hiss, he activated his singularity cannon. The weapon hummed to life in his hands, its core glowing with an ominous dark energy. A relic of Xel'Nari war science, it was capable of tearing apart reality itself, generating a miniature black hole that nothing, not even human technology, should be able to withstand. "You think your armor makes you invincible?" Score spat, his sharp teeth bared in a mixture of rage and desperation. "Let's see if it withstands the void itself." He pulled the trigger. The air rippled as the cannon unleashed its deadliest attack, a swirling mass of crushing darkness spiraling toward Holt at terrifying speed. The very atmosphere around it distorted, the gravitational force ripping the ground apart, tearing through metal, stone, and bodies alike. Even retreating Xel'Nari soldiers were pulled screaming into its depths. This was a weapon not meant to be survived. And yet Holt did not move. He stood firm as the singularity slammed into his armor. The battlefield held its breath, and for a fraction of a second, Score felt the thrill of victory. But then something impossible happened. The Titan Mk4 armor absorbed the singularity. The swirling darkness wrapped around Holt like a tide before vanishing, its immense energy redirected and neutralized. The void collapsed in on itself, leaving Holt completely untouched. The battlefield fell silent. Score froze, his mind refusing to accept what he had just seen. That attack should have consumed him. There should have been nothing left of the human captain. And yet, Holt stood there, his armor gleaming, his eyes locked onto Score with the same unwavering calm certainty. "Was that your best shot?" Holt asked, tilting his head slightly. Score took a stumbling step backward. His claws trembled around the now useless cannon. "No," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. The Xel'Nari Dominion had conquered countless worlds, raised civilizations, broken entire species beneath their rule. No one had ever withstood their full arsenal. No one had ever turned their greatest weapons against them. And yet, here stood humanity, laughing in the face of destruction. Mara Voss approached from behind Holt, a smirk evident in her voice. "You really should have read the specs." Score's mind raced. He had no choice left. His forces were gone, his weapons useless. The battlefield had been claimed, not by brute force, but by superior adaptation. But he was still overlord of the Xel'Nari Dominion. He would not go down without a fight. With a feral growl, he activated the last failsafe in his exoframe. The armor hissed as it injected his body with a cocktail of combat stimulants and nanite enhancements. His muscles bulged, his speed and reflexes multiplied, his pain receptors shut down completely. Holt watched as Score's form became a blurring mass of motion, faster and deadlier than before. With a savage roar, the Overlord lunged. Score's claws slashed at speeds faster than the eye could track, his enhanced strength capable of ripping through warships. But Holt's armor anticipated every move. The Titan Mk4 suit calculated the Overlord's attacks before they even happened, allowing Holt to dodge with effortless precision. Every strike that should have landed met only air. Every desperate attempt to claw, punch, or crush him failed. Holt was faster, stronger, untouchable. And then he countered. One brutal punch to Score's ribs sent the Overlord reeling. Holt followed up with an elbow strike to the jaw, sending his foe stumbling. The Xel'Nari leader, once the most feared warrior in the sector, was being dismantled in seconds. Holt grabbed Score by the collar of his broken exoframe and pulled him close. The Overlord could see his own reflection in Holt's visor, a look of pure, helpless terror staring back at him. "You thought we were weak," Holt said, his voice low but cutting. "You thought technology made us lesser. But you don't understand what makes humans different from you." Score struggled, but Holt held him firm. "We don't rely on strength alone. We evolve. We adapt. And when we're pushed to the brink, we don't break." Holt's fist clenched as his suit's shockwave module activated. The next punch sent Score flying, his broken body tumbling across the ground like a ragdoll before slamming into the wreckage of a fallen war machine. His exoframe shattered, his body convulsed. He did not rise. Holt turned away from the fallen Overlord, his gaze shifting to the Xel'Nari warships retreating in the sky above. Their forces had abandoned their leader. The mighty Xel'Nari Dominion, once so sure of their superiority, was now running from the very species they had mocked. Mara Voss walked up beside Holt, watching the ships disappear into the void. "So what now?" she asked. Holt exhaled slowly, his armor still pristine, still unbroken. He looked down at his gloved hands, hands that had just proven humanity was no longer a species to be trifled with. "Now," he said, watching the Xel'Nari vanish into the stars. "Now they run. And they remember. Because today, humanity had done more than win a battle. They had sent a message to the entire galaxy. We are not weak. We are not prey. We are the future."
The battlefield lay in ruins, littered with the remnants of Xel'Nari war machines and the bodies of fallen warriors. Fires burned in the distance, sending black smoke curling into the sky. The once mighty Dominion forces had been routed, their leader broken, their ships retreating into the void. What had started as a mockery of humanity's so-called weakness had ended in humiliation for the Xel'Nari. They had come expecting an easy victory, believing their superior numbers, weapons, and technology would overwhelm the human forces. Instead, they had encountered something they had never prepared for, an enemy that could not be defeated. Captain Darius Holt stood among his soldiers, surveying the wreckage with calm, unwavering eyes. His Titan Mk4 armor, still pristine, reflected the glow of the burning battlefield. The fight had ended, but its consequences would ripple across the galaxy. The Xel'Nari Dominion, an empire that had conquered countless worlds without opposition, had suffered a crushing defeat. Word would spread. The aliens who once laughed at humanity would now fear them. Lieutenant Mara Voss approached, stepping over a shattered Xel'Nari battlewalker. "They won't forget this," she said, her voice steady but laced with something deeper, satisfaction. Holt nodded. Good. Let them remember. He turned to the remaining UEDF forces, their armored forms standing tall amid the destruction. Mission status. Sergeant Elias Kane checked his HUD scanner, sweeping the area for any remaining threats. All enemy forces have retreated or been neutralized, he reported. Casualties are minimal. No fatalities. That was the part that struck hardest. In wars before today, humans had died in droves, their soldiers sacrificed in conflicts against technologically superior foes. But this time, not a single human life had been lost. Not one. The Titan Mk4 armor had done more than protect them, it had changed the rules of war. Voss let out a low whistle. They threw everything at us, plasma cannons, fusion launchers, even singularity weapons. And we walked right through it. She glanced at Holt. Think the galaxy's ready for that kind of power? Holt exhaled slowly. Doesn't matter if they are. He looked at the smoking horizon where the Xel'Nari fleet had vanished, retreating into the safety of deep space. They don't get a choice. A new silence settled over the battlefield. The kind that came after a reckoning. The kind that came when power shifted. The voice of General Arya Caldwell crackled through Holt's comms, her tone sharp and commanding as always. Captain Holt, confirm mission success. Holt tapped his wrist console. Objective complete. General. Enemy forces have retreated. No further resistance. A pause. Then Caldwell's voice returned, quieter this time. Is it true? The reports coming in say the Xel'Nari couldn't even put a dent in the Titan suits. Holt glanced down at his armor, untouched, unscathed. His mind replayed the battle, plasma blasts fizzling out on impact, shockwaves absorbed like they were nothing, weapons that should have obliterated entire battalions proving useless. He had expected the armor to give them an edge. He hadn't expected it to make them unstoppable. It's true, he confirmed. They never stood a chance. A silence followed. Then Caldwell spoke again, this time with something in her voice that Holt had never heard before, awe. Understood, Captain. The Council will want a full debrief. Return to base immediately. Holt cut the channel and turned to his soldiers. Prep for extraction. We're done here. The dropships descended, kicking up dust as they landed in the ruins of what was supposed to have been a decisive Xel'Nari victory. Instead, it had become the battle that changed everything. As the soldiers boarded, Holt paused at the ramp, looking back one last time. The battlefield would be studied, analyzed, its footage replayed across the military councils of every galactic power. The Xel'Nari wouldn't be the only ones watching. Every empire, federation, and rogue warlord in the galaxy would see what had happened here today. And they would all be asking the same question. What happens when humans stop being the weakest species in the universe? Holt already knew the answer. Voss stood beside him, watching the horizon as well. Think they'll come back? She asked. Holt considered it. The Xel'Nari weren't just warriors, they were conquerors, an empire built on dominance and fear. Their pride wouldn't allow them to forget today's defeat. But they would think twice before ever facing humanity again. They'll come back, he admitted. But next time. He glanced down at his armor, flexing his fingers as the suit's servos hummed in perfect sync with his movement. Next time, they'll know better. The dropship doors closed, and the engines roared to life. As the ship ascended, leaving the battlefield behind, Holt felt the weight of what had just happened. This wasn't just a victory. This was the beginning of a new era. Because now, for the first time in history, humanity wasn't fighting to survive. They were fighting to rule.